update. A bit of a somber week this week. We had a tragedy. There was a police officer in St. Louis that was killed by a drunk driver. Um, the details of that are still coming out, but when I read that news, the person I thought I'd love to talk to this week is the person who, frankly, has led the fight in sticking up. When they say back the blue, I think of Senator Nick Shore. Senator Shore, thank you for making the time. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I hate to join you on such a strange topic, but it needs to be said. We need to come together as a Republican Party and deal with this issue of illegal immigration.
Let's break the story down. There was a police officer was putting out some roadside flares, I believe, because a Missouri citizen actually here legally had broke down on the side of the road, or I don't know the particulars of it, but he was doing his job. He was trying to protect that person and everybody driving by, and he was hit and struck by a person in this country illegally who had a record and had somehow not been deported. Um, Senator, you gave some poignant comments on social media, but uh, when you first heard this story and as the details began to come in, how did it strike you?
Well, it was infuriating to say the least. I got a radio show on Sunday night, a
Hmm.
podcast, and we walked through. And this is right after I came back from the border. Myself, Senator Jill Carter, and about 28 other state representatives went down to the southern border. And we learned from the Border Patrol, from state officials from Texas, New Mexico, California, Arizona, and how they're dealing with this, and state officials from all over the United States that are similarly situated, dealing with illegal immigration in Midwestern states. And, I was highlighting some of the big issues. We just saw one breaking down in Jasper County of two illegal immigrants that basically execution style murdered somebody that was at a gas station in Joplin, took the car, dumped the body 2 miles away, went on their crime spree to Independence, Missouri, shot another woman in the chest, and the list goes on. Those people are apprehended. But this guy that ended up killing Officer Lee, he was with the department for over 18 years. He was a father, he was a husband, he was an incredible man, incredible member of the community. And unfortunately, this guy who was here illegally, he had a long criminal record, like you stated. He um, physically assaulted his wife and ended up under the influence of alcohol. He was under the age of 21 at the time. This is back in 2020. Assaulted his wife, took the kid, jumped in the car drunk, took off, endangered the life of that kid, endangered the life of many people on the road that day. And when he was apprehended by St. Peter's Police Department, it's my understanding, talking to law enforcement out here, they contacted ICE. They contacted the federal government, and the federal government said, okay, thanks for letting us know. We're not going to do anything about it. So then come time of the sentencing in 2022, St. Charles County, the prosecutor's office indicated that they want him to be detained by ICE, and nothing happened. So I think ultimately, seeing that this is a big issue where the federal government's tossing their hands in the air, we need to do more as a state to make sure if ICE is not going to detain these people, their sentences need to be enhanced. And if they are a threat to society, they need to be kept behind bars until we can get them deported.
That's my next question. I mean, you set at an interesting position. You're an attorney. You've carried so much water on behalf of law enforcement officers in this state. Like I said, the person I think of when something like this happens, I search you out on Twitter to see what you've said because you speak for them on the floor. You, Senator Luke Demeyer, as much or more than anybody else that I know of. Then you've got the situation of legal immigration. I don't. I guess I've heard all the promises in the campaign. What could the state of Missouri actually do to protect ourselves from this literal invasion?
Well, I think working with prosecutors, working with law enforcement, when they've touched base with the federal government to say, hey, we have someone here who's an illegal immigrant, we want ICE to come out and take them back to their country of origin. If that's not going to happen, we need to have a fallback. We need to have certain steps in place that if they are a violent offender, we're not going to just catch and release them like Kim Gardner used to do. Looking at this guy in particular in 2022, this is a 20-year-old man at the time, 20-year-old young man at the time who had enough money. He was here illegally. He had enough money to provide for a private attorney. He didn't need a public defender. So who is he working with? And we saw a story I think you covered back in 2019 or 2020 about the apartments being built on Highway 6440 in St. Charles County, and the illegal immigrants that were there that didn't have health insurance, that were in terrible conditions. I think one person fell off scaffolding, and what did they do with them? They just dropped them off at a hospital. So I think we need to go after some of these companies too that are knowingly employing illegal immigrants, and further allowing them to perpetuate these crimes. Whether that is civil penalties, if it's tax penalties, that's something that we're going to need to discuss as a caucus when we meet in November.
So walk me through this. I mean, I guess, honestly, I thought it was a little bit stuntish when Governor Parsons sent the National Guard down, but, several states' governors did. And I don't know if it didn't feel like it made a difference, but maybe that's the future. But walk me through here. If as an attorney, let's say, I'm an illegal citizen. I'm here. I swam the Rio Grande. I'm here illegally. I might have a job. I might be contributing in some ways, but I break the law. Let's say I do something compared to this. If it's not a murder, what can the Missouri law enforcement under the current law do when they find someone here illegally? I mean, can they deport them any further west than maybe, I guess, go down to Oklahoma and drop them off at the state line? What is Missouri law enforcement currently legally empowered to do when they see someone in the United States illegally?
That's the biggest question. And talking to law enforcement in St. Charles County over the past day and a half to figure out how this happened. How could we have somebody who is a threat to society, who is a violent criminal, who's disregarded every law from entering this country and entering our state? Why is he not deported? And they said, well, we tried. We spoke to ICE. They didn't want to do anything. And then at sentencing, we tried again.
Let's just assume that when there's a Democrat administration, they're going to do nothing.
Right.
When there's a Republican one, I can see how but I mean, honestly, I do think it is the policy of the Democratic Party to not have a border. I have a lot of friends that are Democrats. You look behind these walls, you see a lot of Democrat stuff. I get it, but nationally, the policy of the Democrat Party is we're not going to have a border. What can you do when no one's manning the store in the years there's a Democrat administration? Is there anything that we could do as a state proactively? Can we? Is there a way you could craft a law that allows Missouri to deport people back to Mexico? Let's say a guy in Berry County, can he drive him back to the Rio Grande and say swim back across?
Well, it's an interesting concept, and one that I think is kind of being litigated right now. SB4, I think it was SB4 down in Texas, that would allow these state officials to do just that. When the federal government's not going to do their job, it's going to allow them to do it. And they're very confident. The borders are down there. The actual Texas borders are. The person who's been to the border, unlike Kamala Harris, he's indicated that they think SB4 is going to be upheld. There's a lot of states, and I know there were pieces of that bill that I had filed, Jim Murphy had filed, Richard West, Denny Hoskins. Nothing ultimately got done, and I think that we were waiting on that court case. But yeah, ultimately, you've got states like Texas and Florida that have put these people on a bus or put them on a plane to Martha's Vineyard or to Washington, D.C.
Sure.
Is that really going to fix the problem? No, I think.
I think that's smart, though. All these liberals want Texas to just bear the burden. I think sending them to the liberal places is one, it's damn fair, and two, it's smart.
Yeah, but to me, I think that it is smart, and I think it's a political move that is very savvy. But is it going to fix the problem? If these people are truly a threat to society, they're still in our country. And just because you've moved them to Illinois or somewhere else, California, we've seen historically they can make their way and find their way back here. The most concerning part to me is some news that broke a couple months ago. And working with law enforcement here in St. Charles County, I knew it was coming, that the Mexican cartel, is working with the gangs located in St. Louis City right now. So we have a huge problem on our hands. And if we don't get ahead of this thing, if we don't come together as a caucus in November, and you're going to hear a lot of me talking about that, coming together, stop the pity parties, stop the personal attacks. People are dying out there. We've got a law enforcement officer whose family doesn't have the head of their family anymore. We have people in O'Fallon, Missouri that have been stabbed by a former gang member that was here illegally. This is a very serious problem, and we need to act serious as legislators in dealing with this.
So when you put together your legislative proposal, I mean, I think maybe there's a side of this we don't talk about enough as Republicans. This country does have a labor shortage. This you go to a college campus, them poor kids, half of them, those woke ones, They couldn't do a day's work to save their lives. There is a to me there's a hopeful aspect to immigration. Yes, we should have a border, but I mean we need some of this labor. But you got to
Yeah.
do it in a way to know who you're getting and have some idea of who's in your country. I mean, I think there's an actually while there is the yeah, we got to find out what the hell's going on and fix this. If we fix this, there's an aspirational side of this. I mean, all of our ancestors were immigrants. I mean,
Right.
to me, there's a hopeful end of this. That once you find out who's here, you know, a lot of this labor is needed, but it should be done the right way. These people are being exploited. If you get the situation under control, then you can begin to pivot forward to something good.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. My eyes were opened up when I was in law school, and I had a friend who was here illegally, started here illegally, was sending money back to Mexico, and when he ended up, meeting his wife, having kids, he wanted to do it the legal route, and it was such a convoluted process that I started digging into it, seeing how difficult it was, especially for people that may have fudged up on their first try getting here, but now want to make amends and do it the legal route. And yeah, I do agree. There are a lot of different companies, construction companies in my neck of the woods that they can't find labor right now. And coming from a family of immigrants, that I've got the German, Irish, Scottish side, we did it the right way. And I think ultimately, Republicans, Democrats alike, I think the majority of people in the United States understand and appreciate that, but they want to make sure that there's a vetting process. Similar to Ellis Island, where you were vetted, you had to have sponsors. You couldn't come over here if you were sick. They'd send you back on the boat if you had, smallpox or measles. We need to do the same thing right now because we have terrorists that are coming in, going through the border. We met a lot of individuals down at the border that are ranchers. And these private ranchers have game cameras of individuals from all over the nation, or all over the world, rather, coming into our nation through our porous border. Most recently, there were 2 Chinese spies that were found on this guy's land. It's a terrible issue, but I think, yeah, ultimately in fixing the border at a state level, we should be calling on the federal government to overhaul the current process of allowing good people that want to come into our country.
I want to pass a couple thank yous. Number one, St. Charles County. I had a deputy in St. Charles County send me this patch last week. This is a prized possession. Thank you so much. This will be displayed here, probably back in the bar area somewhere I could show folks. But it's a St. Charles County Sheriff's Deputy patch. Is a very honored to have this. Thank you. Talking about thank yous. I want to thank United Fiber, the finest rural broadband in the state. And if you're going to come to Jeff City, you're going to put your wife up. What hotel are you going to put her up at, Nick?
Not the Capitol Plaza.
No, you got to take her to the Courtyard by Marriott. You're a gentleman, right? You want to take if you're going to take her out somewhere nice, you're going to take the Courtyard by Marriott, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about since we're talking about drugs. You've been active on this issue too. This is an airhead that you can buy at any gas station. At some gas stations, this is a pack of airheads that have drugs in them. Now, I don't know all the hemp and all the pot regulation, all that stuff, right? That's a little over my head. But I do think that this is wrong. And you shouldn't package up something for little kids and put drugs in it. Am I wrong? Am I just the dumbest hillbilly in town?
No, you're not wrong, and that's an issue that in my district in particular, we've had a lot of healthcare facilities that have experienced kids overdosing and experiencing a slew of different results from eating this stuff, and some of it accidentally, some of it where parents go out there and you don't need to be a certain age, you can order it offline, but when you have airheads or Sour Patch Kids and it looks identical, there's some copyright infringement there, but it's very difficult. As soon as the company gets the cease and desist, they close up and then they have Fruit Loops or whatever it may be. The biggest issue here, it's not your grandma's marijuana. Number one, they're using the loophole that was designed by the Farm Bill federally to use the hemp, using chemicals to extract the hallucinogen or chemicals out of there, the THC out of the hemp. A lot of those chemicals are still within the final product, and these testing results that we've seen from companies. It's atrocious. They don't test for pesticides. They don't test for heavy metals. They don't test for all these other chemicals that kids are putting in their bodies. And the long-term effects, we still don't know. So we've seen a lot of attorney generals around the United States putting their foot down saying, hey, federal government, you screwed up once again. You have now legalized the this industry where kids are buying it, shipping it to their home, and getting high off something that is ultimately putting them in the hospital and putting them on a road for a bad future right now.
Well, I got to talk about, speaking of a bad future, there's a new legislator. um, he's he actually didn't have a primary or a general in Clay County. Um, his name is Mark Morath. I think now we're gonna have to call him Smartass Mark Morath. He sent me some cups from the 1985 World Series.
Mm.
This is the World Series that he even sent me a copy of the Red Star that had a this is the World Series that included the 10/26 terrorist attack. You'll notice in this entire thing here, they have nowhere does it talk about the terrorist attack, right? Um, the Star totally covered up history. In no part of it do they break down the erroneous call. I always tell folks that night there were 10 Royals that took the field in powder blue, not led by the captain of the Royals in '85, Don Denkinger. So my man, smartass Mark Morath, thank you so much. I think I'm going to find some place to put these, probably in the bathroom. The Red Star, I don't even know what we're going to do with that. Searpoy sent me one of those one time. He smartass just grows in Kansas City, I think.
Yeah, but championships don't, because look, the St. Louis Cardinals are number 2 in all of the major leagues, and you're going to hear some Kansas City and saying, well, we're back in the playoffs. Yeah, it's going to take a long time for you to catch up to our 11 World Series championships.
All right, speaking of cops, I got my Dave Marshak cap on. I don't know if you've heard, but Kelton and I decided we've actually, I think, earned our spurs as the foremost DEI detectives in the state of Missouri. I heard a rumor back during the summer that one of the department heads actually had attended a DEI conference on June 5th. So you'll be proud of this. Mark Bruns will be proud. By the way, shout out to Mark Welker, a fan of yours, is actually watching the show today.
Former roommate of mine.
No kidding. So I don't know who's got the better stories on the other one, him or you.
I don't know. I've got the better beard.
That's true in most situations. So what we did was we investigated and we marked off each department and department director until, unfortunately, we found that the director of the Department of Insurance, Clora Lindley Myers, was at a DEI conference. Not only at a DEI conference, speaking at a DEI conference, not only counter to what your colleagues in the General Assembly say, the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, state treasurer, secretary of state, United States senators, congressmen, the entire party has said, we're not doing, the University of Missouri says we're not doing DEI. She says, I guess you can all piss off. I'm going to do what I want. And not only DEI, Senator, award-winning DEI.
Yeah.
It's got to, on some level, I mean, you spend so much of your time away from your family, working on public policy, down at the legislature for 30 grand or whatever it is. You would think the bureaucracy might give just one passing shit to what you pass as state law.
Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, because this has been an issue that we've been raising the alarm on for a while now.
And they tell you it doesn't exist, don't they? They say, no, this doesn't happen.
They absolutely do. And now it's here in front of us. So hopefully when we go into session again next year, we can handle this and make sure that none of our tax dollars are going to go toward these types of brainwashing educational institutions or classes. And I think ultimately, look, when Governor Kehoe takes the reins, he needs to look at all of these department heads. And I can guarantee you, Todd Richardson's not going to a DEI or a CRT education meeting. And I don't think any other department head should be. I mean, there are plenty of issues within the Department of Insurance and every other department that we can look at and start spending time focusing on making that better for our constituents, not going to these garbage classes.
Well, not just that. She showed up in the United States Congress to testify on your behalf and my behalf, as give her title, as that she serves as the director of the Department of Commerce and Insurance, and she wants to talk about the efficacy of diversity-related programs, how to measure DEI progress, and what state regulators can do to support these efforts. This is her sworn testimony of what she's doing. I guess my question would be, Senator Coleman stood up and she said that she won't be confirming anyone and allowing anybody to move forward until they fix the problem, and no money would be going there. What do you think should be done?
I think cleaning house, is something that we learned from Donald Trump in his first administration. He
first TV show,
Well, he was going to drain the swamp, but he allowed a lot of those people to be held over, and I think he's learned from that. And I think Kehoe can learn from this when he's coming in. And a lot of people are going to say, "Yeah, there's a race in November." No, he's going to be our governor. I think he
Yeah.
needs to start looking at a lot of these department heads, especially if there is a proven track record that they're going to waste our time, waste our dime, and go to these types of classes. Look, we need to go back to merit based. I don't care if you're blue, yellow, green,
Yep.
LGBTQ, straight. I don't care. If you can do the job and do it better than everybody else, then you're hired. We don't
Here's
need
the
to go
problem
in.
with that, though. You all say that. You all, I mean, there's not one issue I can think of that you speak with one voice more consistently on than that right there. But you have a department head just across the street that says, I'll do what the hell I want. Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? To
Yeah,
the
and I think
governor, straight to the governor says, I'll do whatever I want. Mike Parson, you can stick it.
this would be a perfect time for you. Look, if Mike wants to deal with this before he's finished, great. I would welcome it. But either Mike Parson, Mike Kehoe, or anyone, if they want to work with the legislative branch, there's these separation of powers. This would be a perfect time to say, all right, let's start working together. This is an issue. This is a misuse of our tax dollars. This is a waste of time. Who can we put in here to replace them? And I think there are several different candidates, whether former legislators or people in the private sector, that would take this job more seriously than she has.
Well, at the end of the day, I guess I'll just ask you the final question on this. Can you tell an old boy in Defiance today who I really doubt there's anyone in Defiance swinging a hammer on this rainy Tuesday that's going to look at his pay stub on Friday afternoon and think, damn it, I didn't send enough money for the insurance director to do more DEI. Can you tell that old boy in Defiance that you would stop her being reconfirmed in this job?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. Tell me how, before I let you go here, let's talk about session. We've talked about a couple issues, the overall general tone of session. I thought it was better the last 2 years, but that's kind of going from like the depths of hell to just kind of really bad. It just feels like everybody there is on pins and needles, ready to go at it. And not everybody, the two camps of Republicans are on pins and needles, looking for any slight to be ticked off. um, I really think of the people coming back, you and Senator O'Laughlin are the two most interesting. What is your take on how you're going to approach coming to session in January?
Well, I think there's somebody, a good friend of mine, who's running for leadership right now, Tony Lutkemeyer, and he and I have worked on both sides of many different issues. And I recall over the past 2 years, there have been plenty of times where we go up, and whether I don't support one of his bills or he doesn't support one of mine, the very next bill we're working together on dealing with crime or public safety or protecting the men and women in blue. And that's what we should be doing, not only as legislators, but especially as Republicans. When I used to lead sports teams and playing football in college, we would deal with our issues in practice. And I think that's what we need to do as a caucus. And I've urged Senator O'Laughlin and whoever is going to take the reins as floor leader, let's start doing that. Let's start communicating about, number one, our priorities and a plan to actually achieve them. But if we have any issues, if we have any of these personal beefs or rifts, let's resolve those in a caucus and not let those come to a head on the floor, where we've seen two different individuals that may have the same exact bill voting against their exact same language just because somebody else is going to get the credit for it. And I think it might have been Truman who said, look, a lot can get accomplished when you don't care who gets the credit. And that's what we need to start doing as a Republican Party, because we have the illegal immigration issue. We have taxation issues that I've spoken to Kehoe about.
I don't think it's a bad issue. It seems like and I'll be honest with you, it seemed like from that leadership election where Senator Onder lost to Senator Schatz and Senator Hoskins lost to Senator Rowden, neither side ever got over it. And now, whether that's fair to any of these individual people or not, I think seeing as everybody in that leadership race is now gone, right? There's nobody else hanging around from that leadership race. Right, wrong, indifferent, I do think there's an opportunity here to start over and kind of say, okay, let's shake the Etch-a-Sketch here. And yeah, we're going to fight. And yeah, I don't like everybody. But I don't have to make every day a sounding board of grievances.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And, if we can get back to that, the not necessarily the relationships aspect, but the actual statesmanship where, look, you can work together. You're not going to burn bridges. And for me and Tony Lutkemeyer and others that are attorneys, it's easy.
You
because we
think Tony
work with people.
Lukemeyer is leading that floor leader race?
I think he really is, and I think with him as a leader in the Judiciary Committee over the past several years, he's worked with people all over, Democrats, Republicans. If it makes sense on a bill, just last year, the bill that got to the governor's desk with Valentine's Law in it, he worked with
Mm-hmm.
myself, Tracy McCreary, and several others. He had bills that were being heard when Freedom Caucus bills weren't being heard in certain committees. Tony Lukemeyer was saying, bring him here. We're going to give him a hearing, get him to the floor. That's actual leadership. And that's something that I think can set the tone to make this a fresh start for the Republican Party come 2025.
Okay. Senator Short, thank you so much. We look forward to watching how the Senate unfolds. And I think myself and a lot of folks are going to be watching your social media account in the next few days and weeks to see what legislatively can happen to prevent another tragedy like this so we don't lose another officer.
I agree. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thanks a lot. That was Senator Nick Shore. I'm telling you, Nick Shore is talented. Maybe he's right. I mean, what I kind of heard him say was, if Tony Lukemeyer is the floor leader, we're going to approach this a little differently than, and maybe I don't think he said if somebody else is, I'm not. I just think it was a nice shout out to Senator Lukemeyer to say if he's the floor leader, he's got a track record of figuring this stuff out. Now let's talk about one thing since we're talking about figuring things out. If you watch my social media, I made a bet with my man Jim from United Fiber. Maryville came all the way down to Blair Oaks and got their Wardsville whooping. Coach LePage put a beat down, Blair Oaks beat down on Maryville. I think it was like 64-14. And we bet a beer on it. He not only this is what kind of guy Bagley is. He brought me an entire case of Bud Light. Check this out. Toast you. They're warm, or I'd toast one right now. Jim, thank you so much. Coach LePage, thank you for helping me win this scrumptious Bud Light. I'm very grateful. And we will see you. Help me come back tomorrow.